I am not exaggerating when I say this method will save you 15 years of aimless practice, but don't take my word for it. Listen to what my students are saying about the method.
All credit to you guys. I went through so many like music books, theory, all kinds of stuff like that, and they all approach it from like a similar place. That at times, especially when you're first learning, it seems like unobtainable. But the way that you guys lay it out has been the opposite of that. It's like, okay, now I'm seeing like what's really going on here.
It's definitely different than anything I've done, but that's really what you need to break through those plateaus of being stuck, because there's so many people posting all the same stuff, but you don't learn how to apply it practicing that stuff and starting to click now that we have a process to practice it in, and then you see the end goal as you just move slightly up your little process of practicing.
Do you feel like you have a foundation that you can continue to build on as far as you want to go?
Yeah, starting with that first module with chord construction, it was laid out so simply and logically with as few words as possible to explain what was necessary, so that I was able to read through it quickly but also understand it very easily.
You're definitely going to want to be taking some notes here, because by the end of this video, you are going to have a macro framework for musical development. You're going to see the big picture of musical development. And this macro framework breaks down to 3 guiding principles. You could think of these as the 3 guiding principles of musical development. So the first of these guiding principles is to never practice anything out of context. I'm going to demonstrate exactly what that looks like, but just to explain what context is. Context is form, right? Form presupposes everything that we're going to talk about. I've said this in a lot of videos in the past, so I'm not going to go on this massive tangent of form, but you do need to know that these 3 guiding principles presuppose the idea of form. So as I demonstrate this, I'm going to use a form. So where can we get our forms? We could get a form from a classical composition, like a chorale or an invention. We could also get a form from the jazz standard repertoire. That's a great one. We could also get a form from your original compositions. So if you don't have any original compositions, probably want to use a jazz standard, because of those 3, jazz standard is going to be the best one to use for your form. So in this example, I'm going to use a form from the jazz standard repertoire called Solar. Classic, iconic, ultimate banger. It's short also, 12 bars. You know, I always say short forms are the better. That's why the first form you ever want to start with is just the 2 of us. And then you want to break that down even further in just these 2 bars of just the 2 of us. But I'm going to pick Solar because it's a classic banger. And a lot of you have probably heard it before. If you haven't heard it before, you're going to recognize it right here, right now. I know a lot of you guys follow me on Instagram, and that's that classic video everyone keeps liking. Was really in the zone on that one. Solar, man, it's that cosmic implication, right? So you could hear and also you could see that form with the chart there. So in my mind, what I'm doing is I'm essentially just practicing, right? But I'm using the form Solar. I'm also using rhythm. I'm using a lot of things. I'm using all. That's what we're going to talk about right here. But that was a really high level of integrated practice. And that's now implying something a bit deeper here, which is why jazz, right? Those like jazz form playgrounds, right? This is an ancient phenomenon, right? Using the jazz forms to develop your technique, your vocabulary, right? And you can see this whole practice compounded to the point where I'm literally developing new vocabulary in real time. Like my practice has compounded all the way to real time vocabulary generation. And so the trick is keep learning new tunes, keep generating new vocabulary. But using that form Solar, that reins it all in. That gives me a parameter. So I'm just developing vocabulary on Solar, right? That reins it way in. Otherwise, it's like infinite potential vocabulary. Where do you even begin? And that's exactly why this first guiding principle is a game changer. Just practice in context so you don't get lost in the infinite potential of music. Jazz, it's there for you. It's like, yo, like just use this one. Oh, you want a shorter one? Oh, use this one. Oh, you want a longer one? Use this one. You want a crazy complicated one? Use this one. Jazz, man, it's so classic. Just to understand that jazz mentality of speaking the language of music fluently through forms, and then studying the iconic forms, the jazz standards, so that you can inform your compositional process later down the line, because you saw those iconic harmonic sequences and you ingrained them in your ear and under your fingers, right? What do you think that does as a composer for you? You know what I'm saying? Like guiding principle number 1, dude. But you can see we're pretty zoomed out here, right? Because if I zoom in, it's like, what am I actually playing on Solar? Well, I'm playing the 6 triadic configurations and I'm playing chromatic approach and then just focusing rhythmically. That sums it up. So like, what am I thinking about on that first C minor? Well, 2 things. One is the triad configurations open. So root position C, first inversion C, second inversion C. I'm also thinking about the melody, phrasing into that melody. So there's 2 levels. And then the other level is the chords. You always have those chords playing in the background in your ear, like in the background of your mind. And then sometimes you actually just tap into them. That's that full stack guitar, right? Of course I got my chords, of course I got my melody. I'm doing both. Both are equally implying the form. The variety is what makes it interesting, but I'm also integrating some really crucial concepts here. I'm integrating triad configurations. I'm integrating fat shapes. That's the chord system. And I'm also focusing on rhythmic development. I'm rhythmically developing all of these things. So I have these like harmonic tools. We specifically just identified triad configurations, the melody, and then the chords. And then when I have all those things identified in the context of the tune, now I can actually just focus on rhythmic development, because that's where I'm going to get all kinds of new vocabulary with these same components. That new vocabulary is always generated by rhythmic intention. Rhythmic intention, dude. And then so it's like, oh, am I about to explain all of that stuff right here in this video? Like triad configurations, chords, how to develop rhythmically? No, dude. Like, you see the comments on that last video, dude. People were so mad that I didn't explain triads. It's like, dude, I've explained triads so many times on this channel that it's literally comical. And you can go back through all the videos and get all the tips that I got for you. But if you want the coherent step-by-step roadmap, you're going to have to reach out to me directly. We can work one-on-one together and I can give you that bulletproof practice system. But I'm explaining the big picture right now, and the big picture is super helpful because then at least you can understand the context of all those tips. So this video is really important because it's contextualizing everything that I've said in all those other videos, because some videos I'm just talking about chords, some videos I'm just talking about triads, some videos I'm just talking about rhythm. But now I'm trying to give you that big picture to see how you can integrate those things into a single unified mentality of practice. And I'm not saying it's like supposed to be easy for you to figure it all out. No, if you want it to be easy, then get my direct help and I'll give you all the roadmap, document, full course library, everything I have to offer. You can have it, but you're gonna have to reach out directly to me to access any of that. Links in the description, Instagram. It's all right. Just to sum up, guiding principle number 1. Use a form, borrow it from the jazz standard repertoire at first, and then simply apply triad configurations. That's the first thing you're going to apply. And that's going to take a minute, right? That's going to take a freaking minute. You're going to have to sit down and really dial in some basic triadic voice leading using those 6 configurations over a specific form. And that first one that I recommend is really just this 2-bar fragment. That's the first one. So you want to apply your triad configurations just there only, because it's a lot to wrap your head around. Once you can wrap your head around in just these 2 bars, you can expand it to a 4-bar phrase like this, right? That's why Just the Two of Us is classic, super short, super iconic. Now you can see with Solar where I've got this 12-bar form. That's getting pretty tricky now. To keep track of 12 bars of harmonic rhythms, you can see how there's a steep learning curve right there. But the cheat code that I'm always recommending right here, right now, is to just master all of the things, right? Triad configurations, chords, rhythmic development, master those on the smallest form first. That's the hack, because then you scale it, right? If you're scaling something with cracks, you're dead. Why would you scale it? Those cracks become gaping holes after you scale it. But if you have a bulletproof foundation that doesn't have a single crack in it, right? You scale that sucker, that learning curve, you ascend it like you have the force of 10,000 suns behind you. That's why it's guitar growth hacking. It's literally a hack method. All right, so guiding principle number 2, compose every day. Now, this is a deep cutter, because if I just say compose every day, it's like literally it already is like, what are you talking about? Well, first, just consider the different dimensions of composition. What I'm doing in that video on Solar, that's composition. That's real-time composition, right? I'm creating new melodies over the old form. So I'm using an old form. I'm contextualizing the composition with this other composition, right? And I'm composing melodies through that composition. But I'm composing those melodies. I'm exercising my creative muscle. Every day I'm doing that in my practice. And you see how it's just connected to the first guiding principle, right? The first guiding principle is choose a context. And then the second guiding principle is create in that context that you chose every day. That's how you learn and master the context so that you can focus on the actual creation. The creation presupposes your mastery of the context. So here's what composition can look like on the level that I'm demonstrating, where I'm using another form that I didn't happen to write, but I'm still going to compose on that form. So I'm doing it in real time in that video, but what's that process look like if you're a total beginner and I'm telling you to compose every day and you've never composed in your life? What does that look like? Well, it requires and presupposes the 6 triad configurations. So it presupposes a form, and then it presupposes the triad configurations. So that could look like this on the first level. It's like, okay, nice, I got that open root position on C minor. Perfect. That's one option. And then it's like, what are my other options? How about a closed first inversion? Oh, cool. I've got some language there. So I slowly identified a pathway. And then to put it into musical context would just be the rhythmic intention, right? And so now I would compose some rhythmic intention at first to keep it simple, right? Composing as in I'm using that expanded time scaffolding to make some musical decisions, as opposed to having to do it in real time where it's harder to make decisions in real time, obviously. So with that rhythmic intention, 3, 4. Literally thinking about it like it's drums. First, get that pathway, and then hit that rhythm. And how do you think about rhythm? I let it come up from my soul. Man, that's what I've been telling my students lately. They're like, well, how do I start developing rhythmically? Well, first, just play the first rhythm that comes to mind. Play the first rhythm that comes to mind. Open up a lifetime worth of information by just making that one decision. Just choose a rhythm. Do not overthink it. Choose it quickly and then develop right there. So that's what composing every day looks like. It's like, just choose it, right? That's the micro example. But on a macro example, I mean, some of you guys who really follow me for a long time, you know, I've written nearly like 500 tracks that I brought to completion and produced them to completion. A lot. That's kind of the same thing, but just on a macro framework. Like every time I'm going to write a new song, I'm just like, well, what's coming up, right? And I've got all these frameworks that can make it easier to channel whatever is coming up. But here at the very beginning, don't even worry about frameworks. Just choose the first rhythm that comes to mind. And that's a really, really big leap. And if you can just make that leap of just starting to see what rhythms naturally come up, that's going to show you what your voice sounds like, right? You know what I'm saying? That's why number 2, guiding principle, compose every day. You see what composing every day looks like? Macro full-blown completion composition is looking like, yeah, you're going to use some rhythmic frameworks, have a complete form, produce it in the DAW, record the vocals, right? Mix it, master it. That's also composing every day. And at a high level of mastery, that is probably what your composition should look like. It should just look like full-blown production. But we got to start small. We start with those jazz standards, man. They teach you everything about the creative process. They give you the perfect parameter set to just deal with how many levels of reality you got to comprehend just to be fluent in music. And actually, it's not that many. It's really those 3, right? Triad configurations through the form, chords through the form, and then rhythmic development through the form. All right, the third guiding principle. Speaking the language of music should be as effortless as speaking your native language. Now, this principle functions as a benchmark for how close you are to the threshold of fluency. It's crucial to understand that the threshold of fluency is definitive. You're either fluent or you're not. Until you're fluent, you're just working towards fluency. After you're fluent, then you can go and create. So you can use your native language and how you think about it, how you use it as a composer, as a real-time improviser. Think about all those things and then project those onto your musicality. See that analog. I mean, it's obvious. It's so enlightening to consider, because then it starts to strip away all these things about technique and who's better, who's worse. There's more of just a basic utility of communication, right? Obviously, the things you're communicating in music are things you cannot communicate in English, but they both exist on the same linguistic principles. Like, things you play in music have meaning, they make you feel things, they trigger all kinds of trains of thought. When you're having musical conversations in real time, you're playing stuff, people are interpreting that, and they're just triggered to do something. And that's that feedback loop of real-time musical collaboration, right? It's so much easier to play music with other people and be inspired when they're responding to you because they understand what you're doing and what you're implying, and they can support you as you're trying to say something. And the more clarity you say that thing with, the easier it is for the musicians you're playing with to support you. And that's another feedback loop right there, which is the more conviction you have in the things that you're playing, the easier it is for the musicians you're playing with to support you. It's a total hack. Doesn't matter what level the group is, you know what I mean? Like, I find in music, the level of the group always seems to rise to the musician with the highest level of skill, if that musician is very sensitive to the people around them. Kind of similar to like a 50-year-old man talking to a 6-year-old child. Like, they can still have a completely coherent conversation, and the wisdom of the 50-year-old man can actually level up the wisdom of the 6-year-old child. So this is just another way of kind of stripping away all that technicality of music, all that focus of like, who's better? I'm not good enough. It's like, you're only focusing on one thing. It's a really clear goal. Just become fluent. Everything else emerges from there, including technique. I said it in the last video, you don't have to think about technique. You just have to think about expanding your vocabulary. That's requiring you to know your triadic configurations. That's requiring you to know some kind of chord system so you can play chords over any set of chord changes. And it's also requiring you to develop rhythmically. Those are the things you're going to be doing when you're fluent. So all you have to do is focus on those things. And the whole presupposition of my methodology is using those forms to contextualize all of your tools that you need, these 3 primary tools that you need. So if you want some guidance on everything we just talked about, like how to get those triad configurations going, how to get a chord system going, how to start developing rhythmically, you can definitely start with the Intro to Fretboard Mastery, which is free. But if you've already gone through that and you're solid on those 3 basic fingerings, doesn't take a long time, just ingrain them over a few practice sessions, just do exactly what I say in that video. You got those 3 fingerings, I'm going to recommend that's a good time to reach out to me, right? So hit me up. Instagram is a great place to reach out to me, and we can talk about the next step now that you've got those 3 fingerings integrated. So I'll be talking to you real soon. If you want to go all in with all my courses, my 3 classes per week, that's Systems for Creation. You know where to find that. Price is always ticking up higher, but that's my full offer. I mean, that's where you become a masterfully fluent musician in guaranteed less than 6 months. Guaranteed, no questions about it. Understanding exactly how to play fluently in any context as an improviser, as a composer, everything in between. Full course library with my 3 live classes per week. There's literally no way you can fail in that, and no one has failed. Easily the best investment you could make in your musical education. I promise you and guarantee you that is a fact. So I'll see you there.